see a photo of the Wood County Museum. That building was the old county home. It actually factors into one of Charles Evers' stories. First, I would like to thank our sponsors. This virtual history series was brought to you by Edwin and Irma Wolf, Lynn and Betty Wineland, Wood County Museum T card holders, and the North Baltimore Public Library. As we learned about Charles Evers in part one, we learned about his family, the stories he might have heard growing up as a pioneer in Wood County, his notable neighbors. We have established that as a young age, he was a listener of stories, and he also was a teller of stories. This is the history of Wood County by the way of the life of Charles Evers. What happened notable in the county through the life of Charles Evers, part two. And this also could be called, what didn't Charles Evers take credit for? Now, we know that part one was his family through his time in the Civil War. This is after the Civil War, and we know that Charles Evers was twice elected Wood County Sheriff, 1865, serving until 1869. In his pioneer scrapbook of Wood County, it is this time he gathers some of his stories. Now, in the pioneer scrapbook, it states that in the duties of the office of sheriff, he had the reputation of being diligent and efficient. Who wrote this in Evers' book? That was F.J. Oblinger. He was the editor of the Toledo Newsbee, and we will come up against many things that Evers did that was written by the editor of the Newsbee. Now, when Charles Evers served his first term as sheriff, he would have been at the old jail at the county seat in Wood County until 1868. Charles Evers also served as sheriff when Wood County or Bowling Green became the Wood County seat, and the jail was moved to Wood County. It is his time as sheriff that we get these stories: the Woodbury House, a Wood County ghost story, and the Curse of Bairdstown, two interesting stories which I also have programs about. But these stories in his book come from his tenure as sheriff. Now, one of the first things that F.J. Oblinger writes about Evers as sheriff, as the newly elected sheriff of Wood County in 1865, he finds a number, that's Charles Evers, of incurable insane persons confined in the same small jail building. That would have been Perrysburg, along with other prisoners of all classes. According to Charles Evers, we find him, Evers, before the Board of County Commissioners, zealously laboring for the founding of a county home. So he takes credit for the founding of the county infirmary, which is the building I'm sitting in now. We also find him, that's Charles Evers, within a few months with the Auditor Parsons and Commissioner Davidson planning the deepening and enlargement of Ditch 12, or that part of Portage River which extends through Liberty and Jackson Township, the most colossal ditch project conceived in the history of the county or all of Northwest Ohio. So he takes credit for the infirmary and the Jackson cutoff as well. Okay, what else did he take credit for? We'll take a break. In 1866, Charles Evers married Sarah C. Bronson. Sarah was the daughter of James Bronson. Bronson was an early pioneer settler of Bloom Township. Arriving in 1840, Bronson was the founder of Eagleville in Wood County and a preacher, teacher, store owner, and postmaster there. Of course, there is no Eagleville anymore. A young Charles Evers might have heard the stories from his father-in-law, who arrived in Wood County even before Charles Evers was born. Now, we know about young Charles Evers' life, but he is most known as a newspaperman. In about 1867, Evers bought half interest in the Sentinel newspaper. By 1870, Evers was the sole owner. Now, what did he take credit for as the newspaper editor in 1870 when he, that's Charles Evers, took hold of the Sentinel? Evers made the paper unqualifiedly Republican. Before Evers' retirement, the readers of the Sentinel could confidently say, if the Sentinel says so, it is so. Wood County now rolls up each election, though surrounded by Democratic counties, reliably Republican, and Charles Evers helped get Congressman Peck elected at that time. So Charles Evers, as a newspaper man, takes credit for the infirmary, the Jackson cutoff, and the Republican majority in the county. Now, in 1872, Evers sold the Sentinel and focused on work, some farm interests, and real estate dealings in general. Here is where he made quite a bit of money. Now, he goes back into the newspaper business in the spring of 1875. Evers started the political campaign newspaper called The News in Bowling Green. Why did he focus on the news or start the News? It was to keep and preserve the county seat in Bowling Green. In the election of 1875, Evers' newspaper campaigned to preserve that county seat during this election when it could have gone back to Perrysburg. Okay, so the infirmary, the Jackson cutoff, the Republican majority, and the county seat. What else does he take credit for? After the News merged with the Sentinel, Evers takes control of the Sentinel in 1875 again, and by 1880, Evers was again the sole owner of that newspaper. As a newspaper man, there was clamoring for a new school. When Bowling Green school facility were found to be inadequate, a new central building was projected. Mr. Evers, in command of the Sentinel, led the van against virulent opposition to the school. And our elegant central school building is the result of Evers' hard work. And Charles Evers was elected school clerk in 1879 when the school was built. So the infirmary, the Jackson cutoff, the Republican majority, maintaining the county seat, and now the Bowling Green Central School. Charles Evers, as a newspaper man, led a similar fight to secure the purchase of city park grounds when the land could be bought cheaply. So it's the infirmary, the Jackson cutoff, the Republican majority, the county seat, the Central School, and the city park. Now, this next story shows that Charles Evers was not just full of bluster, but he was a listener. He gathered stories. Sometime after the close of the war, Alfred Wilson used to spend night after night with Mr. Evers, the result being the publication in the Sentinel of the Mitchell's Raiders. John Wilson on the left, much older than Charles Evers, was a Medal of Honor recipient in the Andrews raid, the great locomotive chase during the Civil War. Evers listened to his story and in serial form published them in his newspaper, a good listener, a good reteller of stories. The story was so successful, Evers published it in a book. Evers also wrote a short history of Fort Meigs prior to the unveiling of the Meigs Monument. Like young Charles Evers, as a boy, listening to stories, retelling stories. Now let's get back to what Charles Evers claims credit for. In December of 1884, Charles Evers partnered with Samuel Case, shown on the left, and associates, and formed the Bowling Green Natural Gas Company. Evers Gas Company shot the very first deep well on a lot on the west side of Summit Street, 10 rods south of Clough Street, in the city of Bowling Green. The natural produced gas ran Hankey's planing mill and to Charles Evers' house. So the natural gas industry in town, powering factories and also running a gas line to Evers' house so he could have gas light and, I assume, gas heat. So the infirmary, the Jackson Cutoff, the Republican majority, the Bowling Green County seat, the Bowling Green Central School, Central Park, and oil and natural gas. In 1884, Charles Evers finally sold out his share in the Sentinel, a newspaper, to his partner, A.W. Rudolph. And this time, Charles Evers is retired and begins his writing, short-lived writing career. You might be familiar with the book on the left. It is The Biographical Record of Wood County, Ohio, Volumes 1 and 2, 1897. Volume 1 is the history of Wood County, each township, each town, all throughout the county. Volume 2 is a massive book giving the biographies of people in the book, and sometimes their photo or drawings and photographs as well. Sometime before 1897, Charles Evers began collecting historical data for this book. Evers wrote the preface for Volume 1 and also the first 10 chapters of this book. His sources were largely from his pioneer sketches printed when he was a newspaperman in the Sentinel. He would listen to the old timers, many years older than him, retell their stories. Interesting to read Volume 1. It is the history of Wood County, the first 11 chapters Evers wrote. Interesting, each township's history, each town's history. Now, Charles Evers did not like how these Volume 1 and 2 of this book. Evers stated that regrets are vain, yet we all realize how much better this book could have been made 30 years ago when most of the principal actors were living than now when nearly all of them are gone. This book, published in 1897, he stated could be written better if it would have been written in 1867 when the early pioneers like his father, his mother, his father-in-law were alive. He also acknowledged that the biographical index, that's the Volume 2, would be great value to searchers in genealogy. Volume 2, the massive volume, is family history and lore. Now, according to Charles Evers' 1909 obituary, Evers was not satisfied with the plan of this work that he had written, Volumes 1 and 2, and during the last several weeks of his life had begun the task of writing a history in accord with his own ideas. Charles Evers died on July 29th, 1909. His scrapbook, pictured on the left, was published in 1910. Who is doing the writing about Evers in that in the Pioneer scrapbook? but the editor of the Newsbee in Toledo, who must have known the older Charles Evers as a fellow newspaperman, F.J. Oblinger of the Toledo Newsbee. In the Toledo Newsbee in the 1930s, word for word stories from the Pioneer Scrapbook. Oblinger writes his death, Evers' death, cut short this work before more than the merest beginnings had been made. And it was Oblinger who compiled a majority of this book from the early writings, both in the Sentinel and just before Evers died. Now, Evers' scrapbook was compiled from a mass of manuscripts, notes, clippings, and other materials by the man, F.J. Oblinger of the Newsbee. Charles Evers' daughter, May Evers Ross, wrote the preface in Bowling Green, November 17, 1909, with the postscript, "Lest we forget." Charles Evers, a good listener, would not forget, a good storyteller, so that we would not forget. Charles Evers' remains were brought to Bowling Green from the Toledo hospital that he died in via the electric interurban car and taken to his home on the Evers block. I think downtown Bowling Green. Haven't established exactly where that's at. The Presbyterian minister of Bowling Green and the Episcopal Church of Toledo, along with the GAR, the Grand Army of the Republic post of the Civil War in Bowling Green, officiated his funeral at, and this is interesting, the GAR room at the city building. So he was given the veterans farewell by that Civil War group, and he was interred at Oak Grove Cemetery. You can find his tomb there. That is the last slide I have. I will stop sharing. Here we go. I hope everyone could hear me okay, and there was not too much background noise. Holly, if you, yeah, there you go, unmute. Holly, do you have any questions?
I don't know. That was very interesting. He's quite the gentleman to do all those things in his lifetime.
Like I said, a good listener of Pioneer stories when he was just old enough to hear them, and also a good storyteller himself.
Sure. Yeah. And if anybody would like to rewatch this, we will, it is being recorded and we'll put it on our YouTube channel. So you can actually watch the previous videos, and this video will be available if you want to tell anyone about it to the story. So I appreciate your presentation, Mike. That was great.
And thank you to our sponsors who I named and the North Baltimore Library. I am going to leave this Zoom meeting, and thank you everyone who watched for being also a good listener to my stories I have told, and thank you for inviting me. And I will leave this meeting.
Okay, and if anybody else would like to just kind of watch our Facebook page for the North Baltimore Library, we're going to do some more programs with the Wood County Museum. So we'd love to have you attend and watch our Zooms. They will be the second Thursday of the month at the same time. So our next is, I believe, May 8th, but I'll have to, May 13th, I'll have to double check, but the second Thursday of the month. And so we'll advertise on our Facebook page and our website. So you'll be able to join in for those Zooms if you'd like. So
that's great. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. When would the availability be for rewatching? I was not able to log in until halfway, most of the way through, actually.
Sure, I apologize. Tammy, are you on? Our tech lady is on. It's usually on the next couple of days, within probably 3 days, it's usually available.
And that's through the library?
Yes, through our YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube, and then North Baltimore Public Library has a YouTube channel, and all our videos are on there. And there's also some different history videos to watch there also. So, yep.
Okay,
Alrighty.
thank you.
Sure. Well, thank you everyone for coming. We'll see you hopefully next time.
I'm raising my hand for a question.
Sure. What's that?
Is the commemorative biographical, I know, is online. I'm looking at it now. Is the Pioneer scrapbook that he mentioned, is that online, do you know?
You know, I haven't found it anywhere, but it's not to say it's not online anywhere. I couldn't find it at our library, but it may be somewhere.
Because I've extracted a couple of pages from there on one of my relatives.
Oh, neat.
And I can't remember whether I must have found that in Wood County or Seneca or that area. And of course, the commemorative biographical is just a wealth of volume 2. I'm just trying to pull up volume 1 to see the history of some of these townships in Wood County, like Montgomery. Thank you. Are you the one I talked to about trying to get the link?
It was probably Tammy who's on. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, thank you for logging on. I apologize about the confusion there, but
yeah, the email had the old link
okay.
for March 25th. And
Okay.
thank you.
Sure, no problem. But yeah, if you would, you know, go to our website or our Facebook, we'll try to post more programs and hopefully we'll have you attend. So.
Very good.
All right. Thanks again. We'll see you.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.